Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Vicsport Talks Customer Experience Masterclass. My name is Tom. I'm from Vicsport, and I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present. So for those of you that perhaps don't know, Vicsport is the peak body for sport in Victoria. We work with a whole range of professional membership organisations, state sport bodies, regional sports assemblies, local governments and others. And we help the sector with governance, with policy implementation and advocacy to government, and work closely with our government partners, Sport and Recreation Victoria and Vic Health. And in my role at Vicsport is the participation strategy manager. So when I'm not running fun events like this and spreading the word about good things like customer experience, I'm helping a lot of our members with innovation and customer experience projects to make sport more inclusive and try to ultimately just get more people enjoying the benefits of sport and recreation. Also, I would like to thank Vic Health for their support of Vicsport. They're big partners of ours, and for the past year we've been working on promotion of the Doing Sport Differently insights that were developed by Vic Health and La Trobe University's Centre for Sport and Social Impact. And a big part of those insights and a key principle is customer experience. And I guess, you know, that challenge of getting people who are not already involved in sport, involved in some kind of sport and recreation. One of the key things that comes down to is building a positive customer experience for everyone. So big thank you to Vic Health for their support of our Vicsport Talks series that over the past year have focused on different elements of the Doing Sport Differently insights. And what we're doing today is presenting a bit of a masterclass. So going beyond, I guess, some of the sort of more simple notions of customer experience and looking at some case studies from some very high level, very well-worked examples in a sport and recreation context. So I've got two guests with us today. I'll introduce them now. The first guest is Karen Clydesdale, who's the Head of Customer Experience at Tennis Australia. Karen heads up that team that implements human-centred design and innovation processes right across all elements of tennis's business, from the Australian Open down to grassroots participation. Welcome to you, Karen.
Great to be here.
And Karen, just a starting question. Obviously, we're starting to come out of the COVID-19 lockdown slowly. What's something that you're looking forward to experiencing that does rely on sort of being out and about there in the world?
Yes, well, certainly I think we'd probably all like a holiday, which we're all dreaming on, what that will look like. But particularly, I think we're certainly missing that social interaction. And we've had two special birthdays in our family, an 18th and a 21st in ISO. And so I'm certainly looking forward to some celebrations with friends and family in a broader context.
Andrew Lachlan. Andrew is an event advisor and facilitator who works with experience design processes to assist clients, and has over 25 years experience working across the events and physical activity sectors. Welcome to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate the chance to share some thoughts, and thanks for everyone for investing some time into this morning. So hopefully we can give you a few things to take away and use in your work.
Thanks, Andrew. And what's something you're looking forward to doing as you have the chance to get out there in the world a little bit more following the COVID-19 restrictions?
Yeah, look, I think like most people, looking forward to just coming together and enjoying some of the things that we enjoy in life, and sport in particular. It plays a big role, obviously in my work, but in life as well. So I coach my son's under 7 round ball football team, and we're in the process of getting back up and running at the moment. So yeah, really looking forward to sharing that sporting experience with him and his friends again. So I can certainly empathise with a lot of sports in terms of what it's taken to get things back up and running, and the steps to put in place. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there and embracing all that sport has to offer.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew, and good to have you both on board. The agenda for this morning is I'm going to plug the guests with a couple of questions just about the basics of customer experience. And then both Karen and Andrew are going to present some case studies. So sharing some quite high level detail about how customer experience is implemented by both of these experts. But we will sort of make, towards the end of the masterclass, make some suggestions around what people could do to build the experience for their customers. And that's something that's only going to be even more important as we try to rebuild sport from the COVID-19 lockdown. So I just got some people on scooters, lots of people active outside my house, which is great to see. So first question, Karen, just bringing it right back to basics. What is a customer, and in sport and recreation, how would we define our customers?
Thanks, Tom. So a customer is a person or organisation who interacts with our organisation or sport, and that could be either physically or digitally. And from a sports customers, we've got our fans and our patrons who watch and attend our events. We've got our participants who are our grassroots, from obviously Andrew's son playing under 7 round ball to our elite athletes, our volunteers, our club officials and administrators, and our deliverers being our coaches, our teachers and our partners, of course, not to forget our corporates and governments. I think though that one group segment is particularly not to overlook is our workforce. And I really believe that it's our employees' experience that is possibly even critical, but possibly even more important than the customer experience, because these are our team members and our colleagues that actually enable the customer experience. So I do pose the question to the virtual group, which is quite strange not being able to eyeball you all today, but how would we build a customer-centric organisation, sporting organisation, and how to empower our teams and colleagues to really own that customer experience and to put the customer at the heart of all the decisions that they're making?
Thanks, Karen. I think you make a really good point, especially having worked myself in state sport bodies and with that federated model with a national body, a state organisation and clubs. That mindset of treating everyone like customers is really important, including each other, our colleagues, as well as the volunteers we work with, and of course the participants we're trying to engage. So that's a really good insight. Andrew, when we think about sport and physical activity, why is the word experience so important?
Look, thanks, Tom. I think without simplifying things too much, I think to me the experience is really what it's all about, isn't it? I think what we provide for our participants, our volunteers, our coaches, the parents, whoever that customer is, as Karen described. I think that experience that we provide them is essentially, what sport's all about. I think it's important also for a couple of fundamental reasons that ultimately how satisfied people are with the experience is really going to determine whether they show up again and whether they speak well of our sport and our organisations, and probably whether they bring others with them and continue that sort of relationship with our sport. So yeah, I think the experience is really fundamental to it all. Of course, satisfaction is differs and sometimes hard to understand exactly what each participant and each customer is seeking, but that's part of the challenge, and expectations are changing all the time, as we know. But I think ultimately, if we can provide a good experience, we're in a good place. And I also think we're very, very, generally speaking, working in sport, we're very, very proud of the work that we do, and I think the experience, the programs, the events, that we provide to people is very much a showcase of our work, and it's the way we interact with our customers, and it's how people experience our sport. So I think really the experience is the thing that runs through all of our sport.
Thanks, Andrew. Karen, in customer experience, we often talk about touch points. So can you tell us what a customer experience touch point is?
Thanks, Tom. Well, I suppose a customer touch point can be any opportunity where our brand points with our customer touch points, whether that be, once again, digital or physical, along their journey. So, for example, you might want to find and book. You might go to a website to book and pay. You might go to do your membership or program. You may go online or over the phone, or it may be even face-to-face in the case of many of our sporting opportunities. To play and watch, you may go to a stadium, you may watch just online, or you actually go to that venue, whether that be a club, and have that face-to-face contact with someone welcoming you to that venue. And then hopefully then you stay engaged, whether that's through social or providing feedback. So there are various touch points along the way. But I think what's important is that they're not just transactional moments, that they're real critical interactions, and it's an opportunity to really build on that experience with the brand, and to obviously not provide a negative experience where you may erode that experience. So I think the challenge I put out to the team is think about, out into our virtual team here today, is to think about the moments that matter for our customers, and what matters to the customer, not necessarily what matters to our club or our organisation.
Thanks, Karen. And I find it interesting that, I guess, the idea of a customer experience touch point can sound like something that's quite transactional, and in some cases that's what the customer relationship is. But we often talk about sports clubs being like families, and that's almost more of a cultural challenge, but it still comes back to everyone's experience. So we do have these different types of customer relationships in sport that we need to bring this approach to. Andrew, thinking about other industries, how do you think the sort of sport and recreation sector stacks up against industries like finance or technology in the, I guess, application of customer experience design processes?
Good question, Tom. I think in terms of our mindset, I think we're very passionate about the experiences we provide to those customers. And I think we all work in sport because we are extremely passionate and proud of our sport and what our organisations can produce as experiences. I think in terms of the process, how sport compares to other worlds, it does depend. As we know in sport, I think some sports, as you'll see from Karen's examples, are really leading the way. Tennis Australia, the methods that they're using and developing. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the leading sports organisations and worked, played a role in the T20 Women's World Cup, and working with Cricket Australia, and these organisations are really investing time and energy into new ways of working, and compare very well with other worlds, I think. But of course, it does vary. We've all got different resources and capabilities, and so I think the motivation's there. It's just a matter of us all sharing, like we are today, some of the ways of working. I was fortunate to work with a number of different organisations within sport and local governments and leading brands in the past, and working with the likes of Nikes and ESPNs, and you get a really good understanding of how some of those organisations are working, and what we've been doing is, I suppose, sort of translating what they do in their worlds back into our world of sport. So lots of opportunities, I think, to work a bit differently, and hopefully this experience design, customer experience process we go through gives people some really sort of practical tools that they can use now, really, and very productive manner, and working with their teams and their wider teams as well. But to go back to your question, I suppose we have seen large organisations, banks and retail and really change their ways, some better than others. But I think, we can see if some of those large organisations can change the way they're working, then hopefully we can within sport and in each of our organisations as well. So lots of opportunities. I think we stack up pretty well, but we've got to keep evolving, don't we?
Yes, always opportunities to improve. Thanks, Andrew. That's great. Let's get into some case studies now. In a moment, I'll load up some slides for Karen. Just keep in mind that you can post some questions in the chat function on YouTube, and after we go through the case studies, we'll have a look and do a bit of a Q&A. So if you have any questions that pop up during Karen and Andrew's presentations, put them in the chat, and we'll have a look through those later on. So bear with me while I load up Karen's presentation. And Karen, over to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Tom. So what I've done here today is we've got two whistle-top tours of two case studies, both on the event side and the tennis side. And just at the start, just to go through our customer experience strategy and how we align that to the business. I'll quickly just talk to you in terms of who are our customers. And we've done some work recently just to identify that we've got our customers in our event side and, of course, on the tennis side, the participation. And our event side, we've got our fan and our patron, our partner, our player. And then on the participation tennis side, we've got our participant, our deliverer and our volunteer. We call this our customer wheel. And particularly you can see those 6 segments. They're our 6 key customer segments, but of our sort of like Trivial Pursuit pie. But on the outer ring of the wheel, it's probably what we call our archetypes. So for example, as a participant, you might be a parent, you might be an athlete, you might be a social player or a competitive player, which all have very different characteristics. We also, within this wheel, we refer to it that it's more like a kaleidoscope, that we're very aware that you may be an athlete who's then performing and becoming at that elite end and would then play in our events under the segment of a player. And we're also very aware that we have volunteers and coaches that wear multiple hats, also playing competitively. I think the only call out to this is that this was developed collaboratively, and it's a really great way to work with your colleagues and stakeholders to really determine who are your customers and get those definitions. So Tom, if we can just go to the next slide. The other important part with customer experience is to align it to your strategy. And Tennis Australia's vision is to create a playful world through tennis for everyone. And also it's aligned to our marketing goal, being welcome everyone to Australian tennis. And that particularly means we welcome every one of our customers to provide them with relevant and personalised messaging. And when we refer to everyone, we are obsessed with everybody that connects with tennis, but we really want to understand who they are and understand that through insights and listening to them so that we can provide them a more personalised experience. And of course, we want to embrace the Australian iconic experience. Tom's moved me to the next slide. So in terms of the framework that we really like to use, and I think this is relevant for any club or organisation, is to really get the basics right and to provide consistent experiences, then to work up to manage what the moments to master, which are more exceptional and personalised experience, and then really then building on that to provide more purposeful and iconic experiences. And in the future, that will be really providing a really blended physical and digital experience at all our events and grassroots. But now I'm going to just scroll in to our next slide, thanks Tom, which is basically the case study of our event side, which I've chosen the premium experience. We've been quite fortunate over the last 18 months to build a human-centred design team that sits within our CX team. So 18 months ago, we weren't doing this type of work, but I thought I'd just share and case study this with you today. We use HCD as a creative approach to really understand our customers' needs and that we're really designing for the people at heart. And certainly as you go through this process, that we really tailor for their needs. So we start with discover, which is really all the insights and discovery of what we know about that problem. And then over time, we then look at defining, which is more than converging in and the synthesis and focus on the problem. And then once again, going back out for that process is the design, where you can look at potential solutions, which is once again a diverging process, keeping the customer along the way and seeking their feedback. And of course, then the deliver phase, which is really an opportunity of the solutions that have and can work in the scenario. This process can go over 2 weeks, 2 months, or over 2 years, depending on what project you may be working in. If we can just go to the next slide, and we can see how we use this methodology throughout the process. So we had a couple of experienced designers that worked at the 3 phases of the customer journey for our premium experience. So that's our corporate people coming to the Australian Open, but it also may be working with the events person who's running that or the EA of the executive. So we look at what happens before, during, and after. And you can see all the touch points that we were referring to earlier at each of those stages, whether that's actually understanding what I'd like to purchase, the actual purchase process, or when you actually get to the event, the during stage, which you might be actually how you commute to the event, how you are welcomed at the entrance, and then how you actually find your entertainment suite. And then of course, after, what does that experience look like in terms of giving feedback and then rebooking that experience? I'm just going to show you this next slide, and it may be a little bit overwhelming. If you can go to the next, oh, not the next one, sorry, it's the one after that. So what the team did, sorry, Tom, we'll go back to the post-it note version. What the team then did with all the feedback, they spoke to over about 40 subject matter experts. They immersed themselves in the experience themselves. They observed, they shadowed, and they had many conversations. They also met with 20 customers, and the team actually videoed all those, and I think we've got over 900 minutes of video and feedback, of which then they synthesised that using obviously post-it notes you can see in that, photograph. And then from that, they started to map that feedback and those insights across the journey, which now I will take you to the next stage. Thanks, Tom. Which is the actual customer journey, which is actually probably quite overwhelming. We certainly weren't developing anything of this nature 18 months ago. But the key is that they've actually looked at the red line across there are the various different stages, whether that's the awareness stage, the ticketing, the lead up, the arrival, the attending, the exit, and then of course the post experience. And from that, there are various swim lanes, which are the horizontals going across, being the service delivery, which is really where all our architecture and dependencies and connections that actually underpin and support that experience. And other swim lanes under the journey there, which I think are the key, are what are the key findings and what are the quick wins and opportunities. And if I just go to the next slide, thanks, Tom. This is a zoomed up version of one of those little interactions, and you can see the team have identified the pain points in that little wobbly journey there, and through the insights that the team have gathered, this is the feedback that we've got. And certainly our customers were challenged with, where can I book? The website perhaps was a bit confusing about what products and the price, and certainly then they didn't know sometimes who to contact, and there might have been a bumpy road, whether it was customer support or our way of hospitality. But what does that mean for your organisations is that just an opportunity to map those and understand where the pain points are so that then you can mitigate those moving forward. And then if you could go to the next slide, thanks, Tom. This is a very simple template that you can pull off the internet, but I have actually just customised that for a sporting lens with the different stages, and then what I call the different swim lanes, being the journey, the pain points or touch points and insights, and of course opportunities. But you can design this yourself, and you can do this rudimentary on a wall with post-it notes, and you can do it collaboratively with your team members and build it out. Thank you, Tom. What the team did then, obviously this was in February after the Australian Open, they'd started to map the journey, socialise that with all our stakeholders, and then they ran a co-design workshop, which I really loved because they actually used video footage of the customers, and that was an opportunity to really have the customer voice in that workshop. They developed wireframes, as you can see there, and started to draw what that would look on the website, which was that was becoming more to that design phase of the double diamond that I referred to at the start. If you then scroll down to the next one, Tom, and I think this is our last slide, this is actually a prototype that the team have developed over the last couple of months or weeks, and now they have put that design in front of our customers, once again also getting feedback along the way. So that's a little whistle-top tour of the premium experience, and now I'm just going to go to the next slide, I think. It may have just gone off my screen. Thank you very much, Tom. Is what we call the tennis front door case study. And the premise of this research was to really understand how might we promote and facilitate adult social play powered by an exceptional digital experience for our customers and consumers. This came off the back of insight that we knew that we had around 4 to 5 million lapsed tennis players. And of those who are on the call today, I suspect many of you may have played tennis as a young child at school, but then you possibly haven't picked up a racket since. So that's what this project was about. Thanks, Tom. So what we did, similarly, we adopted the double diamond approach, and in the discover phase, it was a real opportunity to understand what existing research we had, which we did have a fair bit over the years, and to immerse ourselves in the customer's world. So through that, we went to 6 different states and locations around Australia and really understood what those needs were. When you see this diagram, it was actually the opportunity to map everything that we had in existence along a very simple journey. And then you can see wherever we thought we could see a building, and this was obviously on our 4th floor at Tennis Australia, at Tennis headquarters, wherever we could see something where there was a gap, that was a gap of some knowledge that we didn't have, which then informed that research that we went out to those various states. And then if you go to the next stage, which is the define stage. And through this stage, we really wanted to identify and converge a little bit more to identify the right areas that we should focus on for our customers and challenge ourselves on our statements and our mindsets and really define those initial concepts. So of the 1,162 ideas that the team had gathered through the research and all the co-design workshop, it was a mammoth task to actually put that down into some synthesis. And they took a couple of weeks to do this. It was very privileged to be able to have the time to do this. And you can see in that photograph how every one of those little insights is then clustered in groups and then synthesized again. And the team came up with 16 concepts. And from those 16 concepts, we then ran a prioritization workshop with the steerco, of which we got them down to 4. So then if we can go to the next stage and the next slide, thanks, Tom. And through this process, we were mapping the journey, obviously on the wall through Post-it notes, but then it was actually brought together in an artifact, which now can sit across a wall and is about 3.5 meters long. And you can see that we have got the awareness phase. And if you go to the next slide, please, Tom, we've put it across 2 because it's quite hard to see on 2 slides. And then the find, the book and pay, the play, and the stay engaged. So in the eyes of the customer, what are those various stages? And once again, similar to the other journey, there are swim lanes that go across horizontally, which are the insights, the touch points, and also the digital and tech initiatives that underpin and support that experience at each of those stages. So from that, I think we'll go to the next slide and also have done a very simple version, which once again, these are the type of frameworks that we were using 18 months ago before we had this increased capability within tennis. I'm mindful I might be taking up too much time, so I'll slip to the next slide. So then what the team did after all those insights and those 4 designs, they then went back out to the customers again, to the 83 different customers in 8 different locations and put those in front of them. And they were designed mock prototypes with fairly low fidelity, but it was an opportunity to take that in front and to get the feedback from the customers. So from that, then the team could then go to the next stage, Tom, which is the deliver phase. And so it went to the steerco, and with all the feedback, it was decided that the best solution was to go with a tennis event management tool to provide for our customers so that they could run social events. So then we moved to the next phase. So what they did there that we then delivered all those insights to our new head of digital strategy, who had only just started, Tanya Tandora. She's been with us 12 months now. And with her and our marketing insights team and also our experience design team, they put together the first opportunity to get your racket on campaign, which was launched during the Australian Open. And you can see there that we've brought in open court sessions, court hire and cardio tennis. I think it's important to remember in any of these type of experiences that we're creating is that we start small and you iterate and then you grow and develop. I think Amazon took 10 years to become who they are today, and we're hoping that within tennis, our tennis front door will look very different in years to come, where we'll bring in other segments as well, whether that be youth and so
Okay, everyone. Apologies for the technical difficulties. The joy again of running remote events in our brave new world. Karen was just wrapping up her case studies and had a couple of slides to go, but we will aim to share some of that information with everyone. So Karen was providing some excellent insights. I'll throw back to Karen just to wrap up your discussion on that process around the tennis front door project.
Thanks, Tom. And I think I was just getting to the stage of just saying it's really important that obviously working collaboratively with as many cross-functional people within your teams, but also to have metrics and be really clear on what you are trying to achieve. And then, of course, measuring those. If you can't manage your metrics, you certainly can't, continue. So I think that's really important. Just in wrapping up, I suppose it's not rocket science. Know your customers and really understand who they are. Map the journeys where you can. It can be quite simple. It doesn't have to be detailed to provide that seamless experience. Listen to your customers along the way and measure your success, and also look at that commitment to continuous improvement. And of course, don't forget your employees that are really going to enable that experience. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Karen. It's just really good to hear about the work that your team does, and interesting to hear that it's not something that tennis have always necessarily had the capability to do, that it is quite a new team that you're leading, and great to see that these processes for customer experience apply from all elements of the tennis business, from the Australian Open, which is a globally recognised event, right down to grassroots tennis clubs. So thank you. And there were a few good questions for Karen, which we'll see if we can get to towards the end. But now I'd like to throw to Andrew Lachlan, who's going to present a bit of a case study and some thoughts on ways to execute customer experience design. Andrew, I'll pull up your slides.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Just go back one there, Tom. That'd be great. So thank you. Look, that was brilliant case studies that Karen shared with us, and I really just wanted to offer up some basic steps that you can take away and use in your work from today. We'll run through a basic tool, a basic document that you can use in your work, and really wanted to just map out some of the steps that Karen summarised nicely at the end there in terms of how we can bring this to life in our work. I think there is a real opportunity at the moment to look at the experiences that we are providing to our customers, and I guess layer in the parts of the experience which are really useful and valuable to our customers and to us as organisations, and maybe leave behind some of the stuff that we were previously doing. So I think a nice time, as hectic and uncertain as it might be in many respects, hopefully we can use this phase to sort of emerge with new ways of thinking and working with our sport experiences. So just to step through a few things, really encourage people to break it down simply to who is the experience for, as Karen's nicely demonstrated for us, and look at what it is that they do want. And I know we know this, and I think we're all very empathetic and with our customers, and we really want to provide a great experience. But perhaps as we step through these today, perhaps have a particular customer, a persona, a person in mind, and thinking about what they do want. And I think, again, as Karen's called out, there's a lot of knowledge in our organisations that we currently have. There's a lot of data that we're trying to make sense of, but there's also a lot of great knowledge inside our minds and inside the minds of your teams. So that, the more we can use that to design these experiences, the better. And hopefully this process helps with that. So let's flick through a couple of slides. Tom, there's another slide. So as we look at who the experience is for and map out these journeys, it really is simply looking at what is it that you want them to do, what's the influence that you want your experience to have. And there's a lot of talk about experiences and engaging experiences, but not a lot of sort of guidance and practical ways of breaking that down and creating those great experiences. So, really thinking about how do you want people to feel, and what's the attitude that you want them to have with regard to your sport? What is it that you want them to do? What do you want them to be saying and sharing about your experience afterwards? And to me, any sports experience, it's about changing people's behaviour and attitudes, and even their beliefs and opinions on certain things. Whether that's across a season, across a program, at an event, or in a particular session, or even in a particular moment. I think thinking about these different layers and the influence that you can have is really important. So flick through the next slide, Tom, please. Thank you. And as we think about this, we can map out those journeys, starting from prior to the experience to during it and after it. And again, what's that influence that you want to have? Is it to get them to sign up, to show up, or share the experience? And just mapping things out in this way. And then, of course, looking for them to come back to the experience again and enjoy it again. If you go to the next slide, thanks, Tom. What's obviously critical as well is, whilst we're mapping out the experience, that the front of house experience, if you like, for our customers, what it is that they're doing, we do need to marry that back to what we need to be doing as an organisation. And it's obviously critical that we think about the resources, the time, the energy, the financials that are involved in creating that experience, and not just thinking about the experiences that we can create. I think that's obviously critical and what it's all about, but we need to make sure that these experiences are achievable and manageable for the organisations behind them as well, behind the scenes. So thinking about the resources you need, the stakeholders, we all know we need to engage with many stakeholders. These experiences are the sum of many parts and many people, and we need to make sure that where we have those resources, systems, processes in place across this journey. And again, you saw a great example from Karen of looking at that to the front of house experience for the customer, but also what's that service map, what's the things you need to be doing behind the scenes to make that achievable. If you flick to the next slide, thanks, Tom. And we can do this by phases, and I think that's really valuable to change the way we think in some respects, and thinking about what it is we want to achieve prior to an experience, prior to a season, prior to a session, and just go through these different phases and look at things and see where we can be investing our time and energy and money. Where's it going to have an influence? Where are we going to have a positive impact? Should we be focusing on during the experience, or are there things before and after that we should be focusing on? And what can we do more of, and what can we potentially do less of, which is obviously critical. Keep flicking through. Thanks, Tom. And as we go through this process, it is really about layering in the other customers. There's a slide there just talking a bit about making sure that we are personalising the experiences, and I think we know that there's expectations. We all have expectations ourselves as customers, in whatever field that the experience is personalised for us. It means something to us. We're recognised, and it's catering for us. We also need to make sure that we're layering in the different experiences that we need to provide, so people can share them together and enjoy them together. This slide's really just talking about, there's obviously many moments across a experience, across a customer journey, and it's really looking at which ones do we need to influence to have a positive impact in that experience. Where are the opportunities to really stand out, engage with our customers? Where can we make the experience more memorable, more remarkable, something they might talk about, something really aspirational? And I think we all want to make sure we've got those peaks in the experiences that we're providing, and that sport is something to be enjoyed and sort of stands out from everyday life. So we want to make sure we've got those sort of aspirational, engaging experiences, but also not forgetting about the fundamentals, the basics, I guess. And there's a lot of functional things that we need to provide, and we need to start with those things and to master those those basics, along with providing, those sort of emotional moments as well. If you click to the next slide, Tom, this is just I suppose a way of thinking about the different types of experiences that we do provide across a session, across a season, across a program or an event. Just thinking about the customer you have in mind, and there's sort of almost a hierarchy of needs in experiences, and starting at those base level needs, that how we allowing people to do more, and whether that's just giving them the information they need, coordinating them, organising them. That's obviously critical. So we need to cover off those base level needs. Have they got shelter, water, Wi-Fi seems to be the new base level need, but also making sure that we're looking at those other levels which we can offer in sport, those emotional needs that people have to enjoy something, or be fearless about the potential experience, and of course, the opportunity for people to have some social value and connect and belong more in the experience. And of course, those more aspirational needs and value that we can provide, and whether that's the goals that your sport and program offers, whether it's from a competitive sense or more from a personal development sense, whatever that might be. I think it's different for each individual, but I think making sure that we're looking at these different needs throughout the experience. And I think there's one question I always sort of try and make sure we're asking of ourselves, that the participants will be asking, the customer will be asking, is this experience for me? And these are the different, I suppose, layers that they'll be thinking about, or answering that question for themselves. Am I going to feel like I'm part of this? Is this a place that I should be? And also, I think there's two things we need to be doing within the experiences: is providing the aspiration, providing something different, something that inspires people to participate in that sport or that program or that activity. But we also need to be providing them with that support as well, to make sure that they stay on that journey with us as well. It's all fine to provide them with the aspiration, but we need to make sure that they've got those things in place to stay on that journey with us. So just something to think about as you map out your experiences. If you go to the next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. And look, really, something else we wanted to sort of talk about was looking at the different ways that you interact with your customers, and thinking about who it's for and what they need. I suppose the cues, the posts, the communication, everything that we're putting out there, which they're taking in, what's the purpose of that, and thinking about, is that to get them to sign up or show up to the event or to share something, and really looking at this cue and response loop, I guess, within our experiences, and making sure any of the content we're putting out there, that social post, what's the intent of that? What do we want that to achieve? What do we want to achieve in the session? Some of the announcements or interactions or things that we're doing face to face. What's the intention of those cues on the run sheet, if you like, or across a campaign? What's the response we're hoping to get in those moments? So something to sort of dive into when you're mapping out these experiences. Just another slide. Thank you, Tom. And I guess to sort of summarise in some respects, that the value of where we're going with all this is, there's an opportunity, and I think we all recognise this in our customers, that people have a different relationship with us. And we've got some customers, participants, volunteers, who are attending and engaged, and those that become those loyal advocates and for our organisation. That's where we want to take people, and understand the relationship that each of our customers has with us. And there's obviously value in connecting with them more and building that relationship. They're more likely to stay involved and get others involved, and become advocates for our sport. But also behind the scenes, there's a huge amount of value we've all seen with when we provide great experiences. The organisation is excited and feeling good about what we're producing, and of course these experiences then become very valuable for us in our organisations as well. So it's good to think about with each of your programs, each of your experiences, each of your events, where you're at with your customers, how your organisation's feeling about delivering them, and the value they're providing, in simple terms. I think there's one final slide, Tom. So we just wanted to make sure there's a sort of a tangible takeaway from today's session, and this is just one of the canvases that we use, which is really diving in, as Karen talked about, zooming into a particular moment. And really the idea is here you can use this. I think there's another example slide, Tom, just to look at a particular customer, describing them, walking in their shoes, understanding them, and thinking about before the experience what it is that they'll be thinking and feeling. What might they be doing? Are they anticipating the experience? Some of the questions they're asking. What are they seeing and hearing around them in the world around them? We're not living in isolation, or we are at the moment, but in the world of sport, what are they hearing from the people around them who are a huge influence in terms of what it is they decide to do, and also then behind the scenes at the bottom there, I guess, what's the resources that we need to put into place to bring this experience to life and have that influence and that effect after the experience. So I think the next slide, Tom, just sort of answers some of those questions that that you might be looking to achieve. And this is obviously a very top line sort of simplistic example, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And I think it's just thinking about what impact, what change do we want to get in place, and we know that if people can feel capable, motivated, and feel like there's opportunities, that's a really good place, a really great state to get them into. And thinking about what it is we want to do, we want them to be doing after the experience as well. And I think that's really thinking about the outcomes and what's the purpose of that session, of that program, even that moment, and what is it that we want them to do and then do next as well. And then looking at down the bottom there in terms of what's the returns, what's the aim of this moment, what does success look like in the different currencies that we have, whether that's the behaviour change, the change in their perception of our organisation, some of the other KPIs we have, what's this moment going to achieve. So hopefully it just gives you a real sort of snapshot example of how you can look at a moment in time and map out these experiences. So I know Tom's going to share that with you. There's a bunch of stuff on my website as well. If you're looking for other downloads and tools to use, they're all freely available. So please just jump on there and obviously make contact if we can help you some more. I think we have time for a few questions, Tom, before we wrap up.
A couple of questions in the chat. One I might put to you, Karen, was around how your team works with other teams in the tennis business, and do you is part of your role to upskill other teams in using these processes, or is it sort of more of a case that your team does the work and then sort of shares the insights and works collaboratively with those teams?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, over the last 18 months, we've really adopted a new way of working. And certainly we sit in the marketing and insights team, but we support the entire business. Projects come to us and we can either immerse ourselves in those projects or engage, or a bit of a light touch and support. So we do that based on how it aligns to the business and how important it is at the moment with the priority. For example, we've helped with the AO website, the AO app, we've obviously helped with the digital campaign for the Front Door project and many other projects that we're working on at the moment of shaping the AO. So we prioritise those, and our team, our experienced designers, work with the teams that we are supporting. Now, whether that is the events team, the AO operations, or our revenue team, or our tennis team. So we're very cross-functional. We work in sometimes in sprints, and our teams are there to support them. Of course, that's probably answered your question, I think. And in terms of training was the other part of the question. Certainly our role of our experienced designers is to upskill every day through just intimate contact. But of course, yes, we do plan to run training, which we haven't done yet across the whole business in terms of a new way of working. We have created what we call a CX portal, which everyone within the business can access. It's got all our insights and research, and we have started to create a playbook which has templates quite similar to what Andrew's just shared that can enable them to think more customer every day in their role.
Thanks, Karen. There was another one that came through for you, which was just asking to what extent has tennis had conversations with other major sports around, we're delivering events and experiences to, in some cases, the same customers. So has there been any sort of large-scale collaboration between different sports, to your knowledge?
We have obviously got relationships with some of our other sports, such as being AFL and cricket and basketball and so forth. But on this level, to be honest, we probably haven't gone down and looked at ways of collaborating in terms of having the shared customer. But certainly could be stuff that we do in the future. Particularly comes to mind is what works at a regional area where you can see football and netball working quite closely together. And I think there's certainly that opportunity to do that in the future.
Definitely. Andrew, a question I might put to you, there was a couple of questions in the chat just around how people can upskill and how the three of us had sort of gained various bits of knowledge. So what do you recommend? Is it a case of learning on the job, or are there good online courses out there that people can engage with to build their customer experience capabilities?
Yeah, look, Tom, I think there's certainly no shortage of content and courses. I think for me, I just explored a lot of those different resources, and happy for people to make contact with myself, and I can sort of point them in the different directions in terms of what's relevant to them in their worlds. I'll plug our own work. There's a podcast we put together, which the last couple of episodes on the event shows, speaking with some leading experienced designers, and I think there's some great books, some great resources out there people can go to. It is still an emerging field, particularly in terms of applying it to our world of sport and physical activity. So might be worth asking a few people that in this world, where they've found the best resources, and I'm sure they'll share those freely with anyone who's interested.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. There's not too many more questions, so we might actually try to wrap up on time. Thank you both for sharing your excellent insights. This has been really great for people to get a sense of how this is done professionally and at the highest levels, but also how customer experience really just needs to be something that can be simplified. And as Karen was saying before we jumped on air, just start wherever you can. Even if you haven't started before, I think with the challenge we're all facing around trying to re-engage people in sport and recreation after the coronavirus lockdown, I've seen a lot of sport organisations being a bit more agile than they had been in the past. So I think if there's a takeaway from today for everyone, it's if you're not sure about how to get people back to sport, well, just ask them and try to build that understanding of them as customers, and think about the things that you can put in place. And there might be some different things around having visible approaches to cleanliness or social distancing to make sure people feel comfortable could be a big approach. But one thing that hasn't changed during the lockdown is people are still people, and we're still emotional beings, and we want to have a good experience when we engage with anything. So thanks again to our two guests today. Thanks again to Vic Health for their support of this talk. We'll send around some of the slides and Andrew's experience moments map to everyone, and of course a quick survey for feedback on the session. Any final words from yourself, Karen or Andrew?
No, I suppose, Tom, as I mentioned at the start before we started, get started and have a crack wherever you think you're going to start. There's no right or wrong way. And I suppose going back to the human element, we are all humans, as you just mentioned. And I know Apple, as part of their training, they use the words feel, felt, and found. And within tennis, we use the words connect, curious, and be consistent. And as Steve Jobs said, always start with the customer experience and what it looks like, and then work backwards. And I think we can certainly learn a lot from that. So good luck and have a crack.
I think that's a great message, which would be mine as well, Tom and Karen. I think the thing I like about this approach, it's very intuitive. It's really is quite easy, and hopefully we haven't scared you off, and we've given you some easy steps to sort of take away and use. And I enjoy it because I know a lot of leading organisations are using it, but yet you can use it yourself. A lot of these tools don't require a lot of investment, just a bit of time and a bit of energy. So hopefully people can have some really productive gains just by, as you say, having a go and trying it out.
Excellent. And if anyone out there has any more questions, feel free to send me an email and we'll try and send some answers your way, or potentially connect you with Andrew and Karen for some further discussions. So without further ado, thanks everyone for tuning in to the Customer Experience Masterclass this morning, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Open Elite 8 Premier Town, does that sound?
Big wicket, that one bounced. Come on! The drivers have been taking the gone.
Motor are going through. It's all over for Southern.
He's out. Killum Jones is out. Can it get over the top of Anderson?
Get over
Tracks all the way
Anderson.
back in.
It
It
is.
does. And he's locked in, but what a goal!